Might help if I unmute the mic. Yeah, after that, I'm a little nervous now. I was in the first service. Now I am again. There's more people, and you guys scare me. But no, I'm gonna do things a little different this morning. So I want some audience interaction. So before we get started, the first service didn't like me for this. I'm just going to tell you that now. Particularly the ladies. Sorry. I'm going to do an activity where I call out years, and you stand up based off of yours. That is your birth year. Now, I know that some of you are like 27 for the 17th time or something like that. I haven't figured that math out yet. But I would like you to actually use your real birth year, okay? Real. Key word here, okay, guys? Real. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say a section of years, and I'm going to get you to stand up, and then I'm going to give you a keyword or phrase based off of your years. So starting with the oldest first, if you were born between 1900 and 1924, y'all thought I was going to say 2021, didn't you? I heard some of you laugh. No, 1900 and 1924, can you stand up for me? I'll be honest with you, I talked to some of the staff and I asked them if I could pay to have somebody brought in that fit that year, and they said no. But nonetheless, the key word for that one is GI, the letters G and I. Second generation here, second grouping, is 1925 to 1945. If you could stand up for me. 1925 to 1945. You're killing me, guys. You're killing me. No, I'm just kidding. Jeff is standing, but I'm going to say that right now he's probably not in that grouping. Love you, Jeff. The key word for that generation is silent, okay? If you're taking notes, I'd like you to take all these keywords down. If you were born between 1946 and 1965, please stand up. Now Jeff is standing. His arms are up. All right, your keyword for the day, as some of the youth have probably told you, is boomer, okay? Boomer. Congratulations. All right, you guys can sit down. Remember to remember these keywords, okay? All right, fourth one is 1966 to 1979. We should have a couple more of those in here, if we're being honest, okay? Your keyword is latchkey. 2 words, latchkey, okay? All right, sit back down. All right, fifth is 1980 to 1994. Okay, we got more of those. So I fall into this one. I want to say this before I tell you your keyword. This is by far, according to people who study history, the most hated generation. Just going to tell you now. I love you all, and I love myself as well, but I'm saying that because we're millennials, okay? It just sucks to be us. But your keyword for the day is echo. You can remember that and sit back down. Echo. All right. 1995 to 2014, if you can stand up for me. All right. Cool. All right, so your keyword for the day is next. Next, okay? You can sit back down. Last one, and I know we had one in here in the first service, but I don't think we do in this one. 2015 to present day. If there's a baby, you can hold them up like Simba style, okay? Yeah, there you go. We got 2 of them in the back. All right. Their keyword, if they can speak or remember, is alpha. Alpha, okay? Everybody remember your keyword. Do I need to go back through those for anybody? Yes? No. All right. So we're going to get started real quick because last service I went over and the band was standing behind me like whispering, hurry up. So I don't want to hold you guys too long today. But so we're going to get started with this. And today I'm talking about generations, specifically generational divide. Who understands that that's a very important thing in our culture right now? If you look at the people born 1900 to 55, 60 area, their mindset versus everyone after that 1960 era is completely different. I was having a conversation with a gentleman the other day, and he made a comment that Maybe because I'm 30, I just don't know. And yes, that's young to some of the people who were in first service who stood up for the first and second generation. Just want to let you know. But he said, yeah, that's back when Democrats were the good guys. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, first off, when did we start relating good and evil versus Republican and Democrat? Second of all, when did it change? And it was like, oh, well, the Democrats of today are completely different than those of yesterday. And I looked at him and I was being very serious and very candid. And I said, aren't the Republicans today very different than the Republicans of then? And I'm not, please don't think I'm getting on a public or a political platform here. I'm bringing up the differences in generations. But my first point today, if you're taking notes, is what time is it? And for the students, that is not an actual question. Okay? I know you all very well. But it's to ask this question of what time is it? What time is it in your life? What time is it culturally? What time is it in High Point? What time is it in Trinity? And I say all that because I was listening to a podcast a couple months back, and Joe Rogan, who is somewhat popular, somewhat hated, he made a comment, or he quoted something, and it stuck with me for a while. And the quote is this: hard times breed hard people. Hard people breed soft times. Soft times breed soft people, and soft people breed hard times. What time is it in your life? If we look at the culture around us, some would say it's hard. Some would say it's kind of soft. It was kind of funny. I had several people in the first service, actually more than about 15, that fell into the first and second generational gaps there. And one of them, I said, is it hard time or soft time? And like, you could clearly see it on their face. And they were like, I know them, and I know they lived through the Great Depression and World War II and all that stuff. And they're like, oh, this is pie. Like what you guys got right now, you don't even know what hard times are. But then if you ask the person down the road who was born in the 90s, the 80s, and politically, you would think it's a hard time right now, right? But it's based off of perspective. It's based off of what it is you've been through. It's based off of what you're going through. It's not based off of everybody around you. It's based off of you. You're different because everybody's different. If we look at what makes us different, we can find that in Galatians chapter 5, where it talks about the difference between the flesh and the spirit. Which leads us into point number 2, which is, what are the fruits? Galatians chapter 5, verses 21 and following say, but the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. So if we ask the question, what time is it? For you personally, and the results aren't yielded up by the fruits of the Spirit, how are they yielded? How are they produced? How are they measured? I know some of you have asked me what prop I'm bringing today. And last time was a boat, but because of all the renovations that we've done recently, I don't think Parker would have let me put a boat on the stage, let's be honest. So I brought a sword. And I brought a sword because if you know me at all, you know that I have a huge fascination for not ancient history, but like history in general, specifically the medieval era. Knights and, all that fun stuff. And it reflects upon me because of the fact that I find the values of a knight to be something that's lacking in modern culture. And the reason I say that is because you hear the quote all the time, well, chivalry is dead. Should it be? You hear all the time, well, you can't really take him at his word. I grew up, your word was everything. If a man didn't have his word, he was nothing. But that's not the way it's viewed today. If you look at a knight, there are 6 stages to his life. The first stage is being a page. A page is a young boy between the ages of like 6 to 8 years old, that it wasn't even his decision to become a knight, honestly. It was his parents. His parents would look at him and say, okay, you have enough bravery, you could probably make it. You're smart enough, you might get through the testing. You're loyal, you've got the qualities. And they would say, okay, well, we're gonna find a knight for you. And the knight that they found for the boy wouldn't be a knight that was local. It wouldn't be somebody in their village or somebody within even a couple miles of their home. It would be somebody far away. And they would impart this boy, or they would give this boy over to the knight, and the knight would then take on the task of training him. Training that would last all the way up until he was 18 to 21 years of age. It was the page's responsibility to learn from the squire. It was the squire's responsibility to learn from the page. To learn from the knight. If the knight failed in his teaching, then the squire would never become a knight. If the squire failed in his teaching, the page would never become a squire. It would ruin their lives. At the same point in time, for the women, it was much similar. They would find either their mother or an elder or someone in the community to teach them what it was they wanted to know, whether it was a skill or whether it was household things or whatever it may be. And their ability to learn was only hindered by their personal desire to succeed. But there's a catch-22 there. Because once again, just like the page becoming the squire and the squire becoming the knight, if the lady failed to learn, when she became, of age, and she didn't know what needed to be learned, then she was ashamed to her family and her community. Just like the page and the squire. If they failed to learn, then they too would become ashamed to their parents in their community or their family in their community. What I'm saying in all this is, actually, one more thing. When a squire became a knight, he would have to take on this code. He would have to quote the code of a knight, and he would be given 4 gifts. The first gift would be a sword, not quite similar to this one, but very bedazzled, to use a modern word. Gold and silvers and pearls and rubies and all kinds of stuff. It was an award handed to him by the king. And then the knight who he trained under would hand him another sword, much similar to this one. A sword that's an actual tool to be used. The knight would also give him a new horse and a new set of spurs. He gave them those 3 things because of 2 reasons. The sword meant it was his job to protect. The horse and the spurs were a definition of that protection. As far as you can ride on the horse, that's how far you should protect. That's your realm. That's your area. If the knight or the squire, when he was tested to become a knight, didn't understand this, he would fail. And I say all this stuff because of the fact that I'm leading into my 3rd point. I grew up hearing one phrase, and this is the actual point in just a second. It's suck it up, buttercup. Anybody heard that before? Yeah. Or better yet, you ride your bike and you jump off of a ramp and you crash and burn and your leg is bleeding profusely and your sock is now red and you go home and what is it that you hear? I just rub some dirt in it, you'll be fine. Did anybody else hear that? I love you, Mom. I can see her looking back, man. But don't get me wrong, it was the 90s. It really was. I mean, that's all I can say about it. And it was not just my parents, it was everybody. It was the generation. It was keep going. It doesn't matter. It does matter, but you'll be okay. You'll get through it. And I say all that to lead into the next point. Earlier, I asked you to to remember a key word or phrase. And the first two generations I'm going to go through quickly because of the fact that there's nobody present in the room. But the first one is GI. GI is a representation of the words government issued. Because of the fact that that generation as a whole was born to serve, and their passion, the entire generation's passion was to be true patriots to the country that they were a part of. Now that's by definition. That's not my definition. That's me doing a lot of research over the last 3 weeks. It was their passion to serve. If you knew anybody from that generation, you probably understood that. I had a lady named Miss Ruth. Miss Ruth passed away last year at 102 years old. 102 years old. And even in her wheelchair, up into a couple days before she passed away, she was a servant of prayer. Man, that woman could pray. Man, she come into the room, whether it's on feet or on wheels, and you could feel the presence of God come with her because she was in prayer like sun up to sundown every day. But she was a servant to it. She was a servant to the presence of God. If God told her to move, she moved. If God told her to give, she gave. If God told her to do whatever, she was willing and passionate about her service. Generation number 2, the silent generation. Now, it's actually kind of funny because Miss Helen falls under that. And if you know Miss Helen at all, it's just not true at all. And I said this with her in here this morning, so it's not anything new. And I love her, but it says this about them. The generation was also known as the lucky few. This generation, because of the previous years and because of everything going on at that time, which was the Great Depression and World War II, the baby birth had dropped by nearly 40%. Household families were made of one child. One. The generation is born into the Great Depression and the beginning of World War II. Hardship was a lifestyle. Many historians believe this generation embodied the term, "it only gets better from here." They were born into such, for the lack of a better term, crap, that it could only get better from there. If you look at the mindsets of the first generation, the GI generation, and the generation of the silent generation, or the lucky few, you see very hard people. If you have parents or grandparents that fit into that, they were typically very hard people. And then we get the next generation, the baby boomers. Anybody want to guess why it's called the baby boomers? I'm looking at all you baby boomers out there. The baby boomers, obviously, because of the term, family households went from 1, the generation prior, to 3. It increased from the previous 2 generations by nearly 50%. But this generation was the desired generation for the workplace. The term company man sums up their live to work mentality. It was honorable and a life-worthy accomplishment to grow old and have a lifelong career at one company, a place where you spend more time than you did at home. If you have somebody in that generation, you probably recognize those words. It was more important to put in the hours at work, 70, 80 hours a week, and just like the previous generation, serve. But this generation missed the mark, and it served a little too much. And I'm saying, and I know somebody's going to come back and say something about you can't serve too much. But hold on with me for just a second, okay? I'm getting there. The next generation is the Latchkey Generation. If that's you, there's a reason behind that. There's 2 actually. This generation was the mark of change. They didn't grow up in a hard work world or a hard world in all, but their world was one of self-exploration and TV shows that taught them home life, or how home life should be. They were the generation that had the rise of daycare. So there's 2 definitions of latchkey, and the first one I'm going to use. The second one we can talk about later. But the first one is this: because of the baby boomer mentality of work all the time and whatever, you had one parent who stayed at home with a kid Or you had both parents who went off to work and you lock the latch and you throw away the key. You had a mentality of work is more important than family. See where I'm going with this? Next generation is my generation, the Millennials. The reason I told you the word echo is because the not so modern term is we're called echo boomers. And I read a funny story about echo boomers. One of the biogenetists, or the people who study generations, he made a funny comment, and he said they call them echo boomers as a joke. And the joke is an echo never comes back as strong, and it's always off key. I was like, kind of hurtful, but okay, ow. But this generation was marked by huge tech advancements and the rise of mass communication. They have been exposed and have seen so much that they are now immune to traditional ways of thinking, from anything from marketing to sociology. We are immune to traditional ways of thinking. Okay? Oh, I missed one thing in the generation before, the Latchkey Generation. It was the rise of daycare which brought on family instability. Generation Z, or Generation Next. A generation overwhelmingly marked by the rise of the internet, where information is at your fingertips and censorship is a thing of the past, where family values and moral values are put to the side and replaced with a heightened sense of self-desire. And this is the one that got me. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm almost in tears now, and I did cry in the first service, so I'm trying not to do that. But it messed with me when I read it. And it's the Alpha Generation. Anybody from 2015 to present. This generation is sporadically mentioned by biogenetics, has been playfully named the Alpha Gen, because they will be forced to be the toughest, strongest, and smartest of the past generations, because they will have to pick up the pieces that the previous generations has left them. Where did we miss the page, the squire, the knight, and just say, oh well? Mentorship is a thing that should be passed down. It's a ladder that never stops. I grew up with the term that my ceiling should be the next person's floor. But that's not a modern day quote anymore. Matter of fact, I'm going to paraphrase a modern quote that I heard. Tell them nothing and hope they learn from failure. Man, I've worked in multiple places outside the church. And it was a growing mentality of, I know how to do what you're doing, but the best way for you to learn is for you to figure it out on your own. That way you'll have a little bit of creativity in there as well. How does that help progress? How does that help growth? When we stop and look at the generations from the GI generation all the way down to the Alpha generation, we see a steady decline in so much. If you stop and think about it, the tech advancements that were experienced by the Latchkey, Millennial, and Next generations was brought on because of the serving mentality of the 3 or 4 generations before that. Mentalities that weren't passed down properly. So therefore, what happens? You have millennials who are known for one thing. Let's be honest. Myself, or not myself, but like my generation, millennials are known for one thing. It's about me. Me, only me, and always me. And that's not me saying about anybody in this room. That's me telling you what the world, these are definitions by the world of how they see our generations. If they are seeing that out there, what are we doing in here? Galatians chapter 5, verse 21 and 22 talks about the fruits of the Spirit. If the fruits of the Spirit are evident in your life and they are being produced and reproduced through you and through the generations after you, they would be evident. They would be seen. Are they? And you can sit there all you want and you can say, well, I'm not a parent of a teenager. I'm not a parent of a kid. So? Okay, congratulations. You'll be there one day, or you've probably already gone through it so far. But that doesn't mean it's over. See, the best part about the old school mentality of mentorship from a knighthood was it wasn't just the knight's responsibility. Yes, the knight did the majority of the teaching. And yes, for the lady's side, the monarch of the family or the lady of the house did the majority of the teaching. But it was the community that came together to teach. Community. Man, don't get me wrong. I love going to block parties and I love going to hang out with different groups. But where is the growth? There has to be growth. If not, a mentor of mine told me that if there is no growth, there is nothing but stagnant water. And stagnant water only breeds evil. That's the only thing it can do. Eventually that water will sour and it's not even safe to drink. I wrote a quote in here and I want to find it real quick. Solomon was a wise man. And he put in Proverbs chapter 22, the generic verse that all parents use for their kids, verse 6, raise up a child in the way they should go and they will not depart from it. In front of that verse 5, it says, thorns and snares are in the way of the crooked. Whoever guards his soul will keep from them. It is our responsibility as the people who have been through the thorns to protect those coming behind us. Literally, according to the word. It's our responsibility. If we don't, just take a look outside. If you can't see it, then you're either blind or you don't want to see it. So we ask what time it was, culturally and personally. We ask what the fruits are. Are they the fruits of the flesh or the fruits of the spirit? And we made the statement, suck it up, buttercup. It's not a statement we should use for the generations behind us because unfortunately they'll have to be pretty tough. The time, whether it's your time or their time, should be a time spent in raising up, not tearing down. The fruits should be fruits that are instilled from the throne room of God, not from your personal desire. If you went to camp, or if the students went to camp, some of the adults went to camp, there was a statement that was made. His name was Joshua McDaniels. And he said, there is no fruit when there is no root. Can't have fruit in your life, can't produce fruit in others if you don't have any root in God, or if you're not helping others find root in God. You can't. It's not possible. So my question today, as we wrap up, is what are you doing, myself included, to instill within the generations to come the fruits of God and not the fruits of the world? And this is the best part of it. You're still young according to somebody, which means that you, right now, whether you are 8 years old or whether you are 80 years old, you got somebody in front of you that can mentor you. You don't have to just be the mentor. I thought it was funny. We went to it was ironic. We went to a men's conference and they said that you should always have a Timothy in your life and you should always be a Timothy in your life. So there's always a Paul out there. You just got to find one. And you should be Paul to somebody. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you for today. Lord, I thank you for the generations to come. God, I thank you for the generations that are here and the ones that have already come. God, the foundation that was left for us has been our floor and has raised us up. And I pray, God, I pray that the foundation we leave for the ones to come is even stronger and even higher in pursuit of your knowledge and your glory and your wisdom within our lives. God, I pray that you be with us, that you walk with us, that you guide us both in heart, mind, soul, and spirit, God, that you teach us daily. Lord, that you put in our path divine encounters for those that you want us to teach, and God, those that you want us to learn from. Lord, I pray you would teach us all that we need to know, and that you would give us mouths to speak as you have commanded us to those who need to learn. Lord, I thank you for what you're doing in this ministry and in this church. God, in these people and in this community. God, I pray that you set it on fire and you make it grow, because your word is not supposed to stay quiet, God. It's supposed to be loud and bold. In your name I pray. Amen.